Good morning. It's Wednesday. We have 3 days left until options expiration, and I think the biggest question that I've been getting from people is, can we still gamma squeeze? Is it over? Is it too late? How come we haven't gamma squeezed yet? All that kind of stuff. So I'm making this video to basically let you know that yes, the potential is still there. Nothing's changed. But I think it's kind of good to maybe talk about, what we're up against, where those important strike prices are, where we need to get to make it happen. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about is we need buying pressure. We need people to come in and buy this stock, and drive this price up enough so that we can get the gamma squeeze to kick off. But we also are working against market makers and people who are short the stock because they know they have this information too and they want to prevent it from happening. So I think the first place to start is probably, the max pain number, which is basically the number that market makers want to pin us down to. That's where, the most amount of calls are going to kind of expire out of the money, and also the most amount of puts are going to expire out of the money. So that's where they're going to make the most money, and that's where anyone who's buying options is going to lose the most. So I kind of put this little chart together. And mind you, this only includes this week's option chain. I should kind of point out that, you know, the entire every expiration is included in a gamma squeeze. So any other sort of, max pain mark and deltas on different strikes and different chains, those still apply. Those still, as the price drives up, those still require market makers to hedge the shares. But I'm focusing more on June 18th on this Friday because that's where the bulk of the calls are in the entire option chain. So what you're looking at right now is calls on the left, puts on the right, and as you can see, I put this sum here. There's more puts than calls on all the lower strikes, and I cut out everything below 12 because basically it's the same way. Puts basically outweigh strikes until we get to the $14 mark, at which point the 682 calls would be in the money and require hedging. So this is where they probably want to pin us to, is right between this $13.50 to $14 range. And right now they're kind of succeeding at that. We're sitting at about, I think, 13.70 right now as I'm making this video. And so, like I said, we absolutely need to drive this price up. Um, you know, as you continue to look though, things really start to ramp up in terms of this running total over here of the sum. We get to about 23,000 difference at the $18 strike, and I think that's why that kicked off that gamma squeeze last Tuesday that drove us all the way up to 22. One other thing that I'll bring up here right now is I added this running total up just so you could see how crazy things can actually get as we kind of continue to roll up if we were able to. So again, once we pass 14, that's when we kind of get to the point of, we're winning. More calls are in the money than puts. And, I added this running total here so you could see the type of damage that can really be done as we continue to move forward. And again, the $18 strike, 56,000 calls would outweigh puts at that point, which essentially represents 5.6 million shares that would need to be hedged and be bought. And as we continue to roll up, you can see the damage that could really be done. Let me move this up a little. 187,000 if we are able to get to this $43 strike. So significant numbers there. The potential's there. And this isn't dead at all. It's not a dead play, but we need the upward momentum. And what we're fighting against. As you can see, this is yesterday. Every time we've kind of reached these pivotal moments where, we could probably, anything past 14 is, winning for us. But the higher we get, the more pressure that gets put on them. And, keep getting hammered down. 16. It looked like we were coming up and about to cross 15, got hammered down again. As you look back, even the day earlier, 16 is, kind of a significant number. And again, 16, 20. So I mean, they've been doing whatever they can to kind of prevent us from keeping this thing rolling up. But I also want to take this back to last Tuesday just to kind of show, uh, what could be happening or, what we could be looking at. So, last Tuesday, $18 is when things really started to take off. And as you can, if you looked at that earlier illustration that I just put out, that's where, the calls really start to get insane with 56,000 kind of outweighing those puts. And, that's where we saw this little gamma squeeze that shot us up to 25. Now, if you've been following me on my stream and everything else, you kind of know that I've already kind of stated, the option chain got expanded after that. And also, we saw a lot more heavy call volume coming in after that. So, right now, as we look, the $22 strike had nowhere near this amount of open interest at 35. So, my belief is, this is where we get to that point where now 32,000 calls are going to go into the money and need to be hedged once we pass that 22. So, my theory is kind of that if we can get past this 1850 mark, down here, $18, 1850, when things really started to kick off last Tuesday, that'll propel us upwards, into this 23 to 25 range, the exact same way that it did with the gamma squeeze. The difference is it's not going to end this time. So, where it ended at $25 because the option chain ended at 22, if we're able to get there this time around, as we look, $22 is now a significant strike. So we're going to pass that $22 mark, and 32,000 calls are going to go into the money, and we're now closer to expiration, which means the delta on that's going to be a lot higher, and that's going to give us a lot of firepower to keep this gamma squeeze rolling. My assumption is that, if we're in, there's also this, this $20 strike is nothing to joke around about either, with 18,000 calls kind of outweighing, and these were strike prices that weren't in this same position last Tuesday. So there's a lot more firepower here on the chain. And I think if we're able to kind of get this push to 25, it'll push us all the way up to 35, maybe even blow out the option chain. If that's able to happen, we're able to see numbers, upwards of 35, 40, 45, which is absolutely possible considering the large amount of open interest that we have right now in the option chain. I think that we could potentially even kick off a short squeeze. So I'm really excited about what can come in the next 3 days, but also be realistic and know what we're up against. We need retail momentum. We need some people to come in and buy this stock. That's the only way that this is going to happen. Um, you know, uh, I already went over, does the rest of the option chain contribute? Yes. So, any sort of strike prices and open interest that you see in July, in August, in any of the 2022s, 2023s, all of that counts. They all have different delta numbers, so it's going to affect the gamma squeeze differently. But there's a lot of open interest out there too, just not nearly as much as what we're looking at in this June 18th expiration. The other thing, how do that I've been asked in comments and stuff before is, how do I know, that these calls are written naked? Well, I mean, I don't, but if you total up the number of calls that exist in this options chain, it's somewhere around 740,000, which would account for 70 million shares. And in my opinion, there's not that many people out there selling covered calls to account for 70 million shares. So, I mean, I would assume that there's a big portion of these that are written naked. But yes, they all aren't. So anything that's written covered would not contribute to the gamma squeeze. That means that someone already owns those shares, and when it goes in the money or when it's out of the money, it doesn't really matter. They still own their shares. Next question that I've been getting, will exercising my calls make the price go up? No, because those calls are already in the money, right? So they've already been hedged. So they've already, the price action of the stock and the hedging has already made the price go up. So at that point, once they're in the money, you need to assume that they've already been 100% hedged. And at that point, it's like, being a covered call. So when you actually exercise it, you're not really doing anything to affect the stock price so much as you are to keep the stock price elevated, right? Because if all of a sudden you just sell your contract back to a market maker, now they no longer need to hedge those shares and they could sell them back into the market, which would drive the price down. But exercising in itself isn't necessarily going to increase the price. Exercising does take more stock off the market, though, which would help us with the short squeeze. I hope that makes sense. Also, what do we do now? Like, how can I help? What's the best thing to do? Well, in terms of helping with the gamma squeeze, in my opinion, and again, this isn't financial advice, but in my opinion, buying shares would be the best way to go, or buying options at later expiration dates. Buy July's, buy August, buy December's, buy further out, because buying out of the money calls that expire in 3 days is not going to affect the stock price at all. I mean, you're better off buying shares to help push this price up now. Um, you know, Going in and grabbing a $40 strike or even a $25 strike or anything like that for an expiration of 3 days from now is going to have a significantly small delta, which isn't going to cause any hedging. So, again, I think right now, help for this week, what's going to get this price moving upwards is going to be shares or, further out options that still have a higher delta assigned to it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I just wanted to kind of, clarify some things and stuff that's been on my mind and answer some questions that I've been getting. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Also, I've been live streaming for the last week and a half in the mornings from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Pacific time, so on the West Coast. So I basically start about a half hour before the market opens and stay on for about an hour and a half. So if you're going to be watching the Clov stock anyways, you might as well jump on the live stream. We'll be watching the charts together. And when I can, I also come on in the afternoons for power hours. So again, good luck in the market. Good luck this week. Let's get this gamma squeeze kicked off. Actually, one more important thing I want to point out. If the gamma squeeze doesn't happen this week, that does not affect the short squeeze at all. So this stock still has major short squeeze potential, and it still is very strong fundamentally. If you're not, caught up on, Clov fundamentally, I just made a video the other day, a couple days ago, which I'll try to figure out how to link at the end of this video if you want to check it out. But it kind of goes over, where this stock could be at, regardless of a gamma squeeze or a short squeeze, and why I'm invested in it for the long term. All right, have a great day. Hopefully I'll see you on the stream in about an hour and 15 minutes. Later.